Patrick, important win, especially after going a goal down so early on. Talk to me about the man you wanted on the bench today, KDB.
I still stand by it. I thought I even I saw a few City fans, because obviously they were watching the show. They were tweeting, but I knew who they were tweeting to. I said I still stand by it. I was like, if you're talking about a team that, let's say, for instance, we're playing a team that we get countered or we get attacked in midfield, which today showed, I would have KDB on the bench, let him watch the game, and then come back and change the game. Terry, this is what I'm telling City fans. I know there's a lot of sentiment. There's the same thing with David Silva, and David Silva was being dropped. This is Foden's team. I'm sorry. There's a point in time you have to pass the mantle. I know that it will hurt people. Yes, KDB can come on and do all this, but let's not pretend as if KDB hasn't been on and hasn't done well. And if you looked at the Crystal Palace game today, let's be honest. As a City fan, sometimes I take my City heart away and watch it as a football fan. That's why we start with YouTube. Terry, if Crystal Palace were good at finishing, they could have been 3 goals up. And this is the reason why I say sometimes KDB has to hold the bench. Because if you don't have legs in that midfield, there is no defensive midfielder in there. Like you saw today, Rodri was isolated. So look, KDB did what he did. It is KDB after all. He can do all that stuff. But let's not pretend as if Crystal Palace were not going through that midfield in the first half as if it's nothing. So it is what it is. But Terry, I know you know this. There's sentiment in fan bases. KDB scored. Some of them have flipped around. They're like, oh, what were you saying? What were you saying? It is what it is. I still think in certain games he holds the bench. That's for me. I don't know about the other two City fans, how they feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, Hamza, Patrick still stands by what he said. Although KDB was excellent today, he's still got to hold the bench more because your midfield leaks too many opportunities. Do you agree with Patrick on that?
Yeah, I think Pep plays a high line this season, or we've seen Pep playing a high line, and I think we concede because we're taking more risks, but we keep the ball, we outplay teams, and they can sit back and just hit us on the counter. Sometimes I don't know whether it's not taking your opponent seriously, because I think we came to the game there thinking that we're going to win, but I think when the Palace scored, again, we put a high line there. It depends on the team that you're playing. You're not going to do that against Real Madrid away. There's no way you play that kind of football. I think today it showed that City you're right. We conceded goals which we need to stop, but the key thing is winning. Winning Palace away is a very hard place to go. Patrick, I don't know whether you remember, Liverpool went there and they struggled and they had to get a man sent off for them Harvey Elliott to win. Crystal Palace away is a very hard ground for us to go. And that's why even me, whenever I go with them and see they draw or we lose, so I decided I'm not going to go there today. So I've seen, I get nervous. Palace away is a very tough game. Midday before Madrid game, he rotated. He played Rico Lewis. He played Oscar Bob, who are absolutely impressive today. Absolutely impressive. So I thought that Pep got it right again. We got that win. Later on, we can talk about De Bruyne, which I've got a lot of things to say about De Bruyne. And today, City were absolutely immense. I think to get a 4-2 win, Crystal Palace away, not many teams have done that this season. Not many teams have done that. Away at Selhurst Park is a very hard place to go to.
It is very
We got 3 points and a clean sheet.
You got 3. Well, how much did you beat them? 1-0 with a penalty.
1-0. It's still a clean sheet and it's still 3 points.
We've gone there. We've beaten them comfortably. We should have won 4-1. We had 76% possession. They did not have a touch. We absolutely mullered them. And for them to have had those 2 goals, they're very lucky. I'm critical of Palace because I see their neighbours like Brighton, who promoted themselves after 2-3 years after Palace been here. But Brighton have moved ahead of Palace. Palace are still playing the same football back in 2010. Still the same hoofball and wait for people to just make...
I'm a little confused, though. You're slagging off their football and slagging them off, but you also say you were nervous and scared.
No, because of our previous record, like we've not done...
When you say your previous record,
yeah,
they've beaten you... I think they've beaten you twice in the last 10 years. What is this bad record?
What about the draws, Terry? Because in a title race, it's...
We were 2-0 up. We drew against them in Etihad. Last year, we beat them by 1-0. The year before that, I was in a game. We drew 0-0. The year before that, they had beaten us. I was there. So I remember it's very hard.
Your record's pretty good against them, though. But I understand where you're coming from here. But I want to pull on something Patrick said and ask the question to you, just so I don't want the viewers getting triggered at me. It's Patrick's point. You've said they didn't do anything. Patrick's point was, actually, if they'd had their shooting boots on, they could have been 2 or 3-0 up. Does that not concern you as a City fan? They have according to Patrick, they had the opportunities to be 2 or 3 up against you.
Yeah, you're right. But City came there. They were on gear 1, gear 2. We play a high line. You're right, Patrick. But against these small teams, I'm not disrespecting them. They're not good enough. Yeah, I'm not disrespecting.
Yeah, but Hamza, it's not the high line. It's not the high line that I was on about. It's the fact that this season, right? If we talk ball, that's why I'm saying I see a lot of City fans are getting triggered with my De Bruyne thing. That's the thing. That's why sometimes you can't be on YouTube. You have to sometimes remove your City hat and just look at football. If you look at City this season, especially what Crystal Palace were doing to us, they were getting the ball in the middle of the park with our mistakes and they countered us. And let me be honest, if they were very deadly in the final third, they were going to be 3 goals up. And let's be honest, if you watch football, we saw that straightforward. So talking about that, yeah, go ahead.
Did they create 3 open chances? Like
they created chances and fumbled in the final third. They created chances. They went through on our goal.
The reason why it's happening this year, I'll tell you why, is because we need that midfielder that plays with Rodri. Veto will also agree. We need to.
Could have been Declan Rice.
Rodri is doing a defensive. I've never seen. I used to see Vieira and Petit together, Roy Keane and Scholes together, Nicky Butt and Roy Keane. I've never seen a midfield that's saying, yo, I'm doing Roy Keane and Paul Scholes' job, or I'm doing Vieira and Petit's job, I'm doing Makelele and Lampard's job. Rodri's the only guy that I've ever seen doing that. And I'm thinking, we need a guy next to him, you're right, because he goes forward, but you can't allow him. That's what we need to get that midfielder.
Rodri's the only person you've ever seen be a box-to-box midfielder.
That's a 2-man job. He does what Roy Keane used to have Paul Scholes next to him. So he will say, Scholes, sit back.
The thing is, this is where you're being disingenuous, though, because I see your team and how you play. Yesterday, like Lewis would join your attack and KDB goes forward. But then what happens is one of your central defenders will step into a midfield role. So the difference is Man United have a system where we leave our 6 isolated by himself. You have somebody who tucks into that position invariably. Where you got caught out today was legitimately in the transition where you were making a pass and you were sloppy with the ball, so you were caught out of position. But generally speaking, you do not leave your players in the lurch, and that's why, because you are so good out of possession. So Rodri isn't isolated by himself. You guys have waxed lyrical, and rightfully so, and the media have as well, about what Stones has done by stepping into a midfield role. Now what you're telling us is Rodri Superman because he's all by himself, gets no help and does everything. That is so disingenuous, boys.
But it's not true. It's the fact that, look at last year. We had Gundogan sitting there. So Gundogan goes forward, Rodri stays back. Gundogan stays back, Rodri goes forward. Now, that Gundogan...
You've got that same thing, but all that's happened is you have bought poorly in the transfer window.
Yeah, but who's playing the Gundogan role?
Hang on, the Kovacic, well, today it was Rico Lewis who was in that other role today, and he did a pretty good job at times, but it's because Kovacic and Nunes haven't been good enough. But again, like I just said, I'm only calling out your analysis when you say Rodri's all in there by himself. He's not. Your midfield step up into that area, and we have all sat there as football fans and absolutely congratulated and praised City, and rightfully so, for the way your midfielders your defenders step into midfield and look majestic. You're trying to act now like that isn't going on.
Yeah, but it happens, you're right. But guess what happens? So if Rico Lewis steps there, then you see Stones moving forward and Rodrigo. So you're left 2. We're left always 3 against 2 or 4 against 3 all the time because there's not enough body in that midfield power.
So you want do you want Pep to just Pep's decision then? Do you want Pep to change that?
No, I think we didn't get we were meant to get Bellingham or Declan Rice and Paqueta who were gonna sit there, but it didn't happen. Now we're working with a depleted squad with a player that we're missing from there. And I'll give you an example, Terry. Arsenal, when they lost Petit,
what's depleted about City squad, please?
No, really though. Hamza. I think there's a small confusion here. Terry, the thing is, the answer is there. It's there. We've seen it in games. if you see tweets, Terry, before when the squad came out, you will find people saying, why are we having Alvarez in midfield again? Why are we doing this in midfield? You will see today, those were the comments. Pep has fixed it this season by putting Kovacic next to Rodri. It's been fixed before. We get less counters, we get less open. But it's just a profile of players sometimes when they're played, especially this, same way as we played against Spurs and Chelsea. When Kovacic, when Alvarez is in that midfield, he doesn't really do a lot of midfield work. His touch is not very good. He loses the ball a lot in that midfield. Even though John Stones is there, John Stones who just came from injuries, sometimes the setups are not great. But I want you, Terry, to go back and see when Kovacic is in there with Rodri, we have better control and a better balance. So it is actually there. It's just that Pep sometimes, you know.
I'm asking these questions because I don't think there's much to criticize about Man City. But I hear, like, I just feel with Hamza, and I love you, bro, but I feel like it's almost what I feel like you're doing, Hamza, is rather than saying the manager's getting it wrong with the team he picks or certain players are not good enough, it's like you're saying something's wrong, but you're not willing to say who's creating it or who's at fault for it being wrong.